Now, in the book of Lamentations, the first 4 chapters are written as alphabetic acrostics. That is to say, each verse begins with the next letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So verse 1 would be Aleph, begin with Aleph, verse 2 would be Beit, and so on till you got to verse 22, and that would begin with the letter Tav. But there's an anomaly in the whole thing. Now, the order of the letters should be Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pei. So bear that in mind, Samech, Ayin, Pei. There's the Samech. This is chapter 2, by the way. There's the Samech. We come to the next verse. It should be Samech, Ayin, Pei, but it's not. It's Samech, Pei, Ayin. Ayin there. So that Ayin should have been there, and that Pei should be there, but it's misplaced. And in fact, Jeremiah's done this in the next chapter, chapter 3, and he's done it again in chapter 4. Now, it couldn't be that he didn't know the proper order. It was rather a hidden message. And furthermore, because he has repeated it in the 3 central chapters, 2, 3, and 4, Jeremiah is confirming the point that he is making. As it says at the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, a matter is confirmed, Deuteronomy 17:6. So what is being so devoutly confirmed by the prophet Jeremiah? The clue is found in the theme of this book of Lamentations, because this book is solely concerned with the judgmental destruction of Jerusalem and the temple, and Jeremiah is giving the reason for this judgment. And this is the reason. The leaders were speaking, represented by the Pei. Remember, Pei actually means mouth in Hebrew. They were speaking before they were seeing. And the ayin is actually the Hebrew word for eye. So that represents eye. That represents the mouth. They were speaking before they were seeing. Instead of the proper order, you should look and judge carefully, and only then should you speak. They should have been seeing with the eyes of faith, of course, and then made their decisions. In other words, they were making hasty judgments before they had seen God's ultimate purpose for them with the eye of their faith. And because they were lacking in vision and faith and speaking in ignorance, they would be taken captive, and the city and the temple would be devastated, as the entire book explains. This is Jeremiah's subliminal message in the changed order of the letters, and this is precisely what happened. There's a similar story in Numbers chapter 13. When the spies returned from reconnoitring the land of Canaan, they reported, quote, "We cannot advance against the Canaanite people, since the land consumes its inhabitants." Verse 31. Now, how did they know that the land consumed its inhabitants? Answer, they didn't. The sages reasoned that they had declared with their mouths what they had not seen with their eyes. In other words, they spoke without vision and without faith. Hence that generation perished in the wilderness. Sanhedrin 104b. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Proverbs 29 verse 18. I should hold my tongue until I've spent sufficient time focusing on the power and the promises of God with the eyes of faith. Also, when an enterprise of faith is being considered, one person expressing his unfounded doubts can have a corrosive effect on others who have arrived at some measure of faith about the subject. Better to keep quiet, unless, of course, the doubts are the results of prayer and a study of the relevant biblical passage. The Pei is seen to be a combination of 2 letters, the Kaf and the Yud. It's a Kaf, in fact, which contains a Yud. Now, the thing is, the Kaf is seen to be a container in Hebrew, and the word for container is kali, which begins with the Kaf. So let's write container down there. And the Yud, as you probably remember, is the letter of spirituality. And so what we've got here is a container that holds within it the yud of spirituality. Now, whether we think of the living creatures within Noah's Ark, or the 10 Commandments within the Ark of the Tabernacle, or even the soul within the body, they all have something in common. There is something precious held within an outer container that will, in time, disappear. That's taken from David. Furthermore, the letter's shape alludes to the fact that the infinite God is able to confine himself within a finite space, such as the Holy of Holies, or the tiny frame of the infant Jesus, or in any believer today. To natural thinking, this is an impossibility, although with God nothing is impossible, Luke 1:37. The outer containers in every case are destined to fall away, revealing the inner treasure which is to endure forever. It has been perceptively said that I am a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. This is the outer container to be discarded. The sages teach that this shape also hints at the present hiddenness of the Messiah until he is revealed in God's preordained time. Again, as noted elsewhere, the word for creation or universe is olam, a word which is cognate with the word alam, meaning secret or concealed. Before the fall, Adam and Eve lived within full view of the glory of God. But once they disobeyed God, it says that their eyes were opened. Now this is a cryptic comment. Isn't it good that their eyes were opened? No. The opening of their eyes to the natural world came with a heavy price. They were blinded, as it were, to the real significance of things. Previously they had moved in a realm of spiritual meaning and could discern the real significance of, say, a tree, or a river, or an animal, or one another. When their eyes were opened, they became overwhelmed with the appearance of things to the extent that the real significance was hidden to them. Since then, we have suffered from what we call materialism. We live on the surface of appearances. We live superficially. The reason for their shame was that for the first time they looked at their bodies and saw only the flesh, the material, not the spiritual significance behind. God has been hidden for 6,000 of our years. To those who by faith recognize his presence in Jesus will be given the honor of beholding God's glory for eternity.